Good evening and happy Sabbath, Covenant Advent Church. And good evening and happy Sabbath to those of you who joined us online. Welcome back for our evening study. I pray you'll be blessed as we spend the remaining hours of the Sabbath together. Please take your hymnals in hand and turn to hymn number 499. Please turn to hymn number 499. Hymn 499. What a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege to carry everything to God in prayer. Oh, what peace we often forfeit. Oh, what needless pain we bear. All because we do not carry everything to God in prayer. Have we trials and temptations? Is there trouble anywhere? We should never be discouraged. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Can we find a friend so faithful who will all our sorrow share? Jesus knows our every weakness. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Are we weak and heavy laden? Covered with a load of care. Precious Savior, still our refuge. Take it to the Lord in prayer. Do thy friends despise, forsake thee? Take it to the Lord in prayer. In his arms I'll take and shield thee. Thou wilt find a solace there. Amen. I'll now turn the Bible study hour over to our pastor, Pastor Lloyd Grubb.
Thanks very much. So good afternoon, everyone, again, and welcome to an afternoon study. This will be a little bit different because I've been doing. I'm having to put that back up again. I've been doing discussion. A discussion here with you this afternoon. So we'll just bow our heads for a short prayer. Our Father who art in heaven, I thank you for today and for the blessings of your word. I pray that you may be with us as we study together and discuss together for Christ's sake. Amen. So today I'm doing a short study, and not so much even a study, a discussion. So we were talking about controversy, and I'm going to read these 4 texts. I just enumerate them for you here, that had to do with the midday service. If you didn't watch the midday service, I think you can still fully get what I'm talking about. So notice we'll start off with controversy. So this is Christ here being questioned. 3 questions comes to Christ, and then the 4th was Christ asked them a question. I read Christ's full question, but I'll just read the introduction for their question. So in Mark chapter 12, verse 13, and they sent unto him certain of the Pharisees and the Herodians to catch him in his words. So notice here, the controversy was they're trying to catch him in his words. They're not trying to learn, and they're not trying to better themselves or better others. They're just trying to trip Christ up. And so that's important when we talk about controversies, that most controversies, and this afternoon I'm talking about modern controversies that we have to deal with, and that comes across our eyes, our ears. Here in Matthew chapter 12, verse 18, notice it says here, and then came unto him the Sadducees. So first it was the Pharisees, now the Sadducees, which say there is no resurrection. And they asked him, saying, so their question is going to be about this question. First question was about should we pay taxes to Caesar? Second question about the resurrection. Then now in verse 28, and one of the scribes, so this person was an honest scribe, having heard them reasoning together, and perceived that he had answered them well, asked him, which is the first of all the commandment? So he was just asking an honest question. So there are questions that people ask that it might cause a controversy, but it's actually an honest question. So this question here was a trip-up question. This question was from false doctrine, and this question was from honest inquiry. So in this life, I think in controversies, we meet with all these type of questions. Somebody just honestly being fake. Some people just honestly are just in falsehood. And they're not honestly, but they're in falsehood. And then some people are honestly asking a question. The third point now is Christ going to ask them a question to talk about controversy or an issue that to this day people have a problem with, which is what is Jesus or who is Jesus. And here it's found in Mark chapter 12, again, verse 35. And Jesus answered and said, while he taught in the temple, How say the scribes that the Christ is the son of David? So notice the person who asked Christ the honest question was a scribe. So he was a scribe, more like a theologian along that line. And he asked a question, an honest question. And so again, but Christ said, you're near the kingdom, but there's something you need to accept. And the issue is going to be about who is Christ. So Jesus answered and said, while he taught in the temple, How say the scribe that Christ is the son of David? Everybody says, yeah, he's the son of David. And David himself said by the Holy Ghost, the Lord said to my Lord, Sit thou at my right hand till I make thine enemies thy footstool. David therefore called him Lord. So the son of David is referred to, the Messiah is referred to, or the son of David is referred to as Lord. And whence is he then his son? The common people heard him gladly. So regular people say, yeah, that's a good thing. The leaders wouldn't heard him gladly. Then Christ says, and he said unto them in his doctrine, beware of, in other words, the way he talk, the way he teach. He teach a certain way. The way he teach, he says it in the way that the people could follow him. Beware of the scribes, which love to go in long clothing and love salutations in the marketplace, and the chief seat in the synagogues, and the uppermost rooms at feasts. But notice here, which devour widows' houses, and for pretense make long prayer, as if they're righteous, but they're very ravenous. These shall receive the greater damnation. Who shall receive the greater damnation? The fake people who call themselves the scribes. And so Christ here, whatever. So this is our introduction to controversy. So what I want to do with you here, I want to have a discussion with you here. And the discussion is going to be about the major issues or controversies that goes on into the society. So first I'm going to read through them. Then we'll talk about this one to introduce the discussion. And then I'm going to have a discussion. So if you have any comments, the main place you can comment on is either Facebook or it would be Facebook or YouTube, unless you have our text, which I can't even remember the text of the church. I don't have it in my memory. So I always post it, so it's there. you could text us. So you can. But I'm gonna have if you don't comment online, where it can be seen in Facebook or YouTube, I'm gonna talk to myself. And I'm gonna have a discussion amongst myself. So what I'm talking about is controversies, major controversies that are in our society. And I'm gonna first read through my list, then I'm gonna talk about the first one. I'm going with the hardest discussion to have. So you know me, I'll eliminate immediately the discussion. I'll go to the hardest discussion, and then later on I go to the softer discussions. So the biggest discussion that we have in our society, whether it be in the church or in civil society, general society, is the issue of abortion. Is abortion wrong or right? The other issue is politics in the pulpit. So you notice I'm not going to get you go through all of these because it's a nice list I have here of some of the worst discussion that create controversies in our society. But I'm going to talk about some of them. If you have any comments, let us know. What's your opinion? So politics in the pulpit. Should politics be in the pulpit? Type of music in worship, right? Type of music in worship. Should drugs and alcohol be legalized for personal use, right? So think about these, and then whichever one you want me to talk about, just type it in the comments, and then tomorrow will tell me, and I'll start talking about it, and then you tell me your opinion. I'm going to tell you my opinion. All right? Prayer in school, voucher school programs. So these, as I say, I'm taking in church and civil society. So whatever you want me to talk about, if you type it, I'll talk about it. But I'm going to start with abortion until you tell me what to talk about. Voucher school program, fall of Western civilization, if or to have a leader from an Islamic background. So this is one of the ones that are going on now because there's a guy in New York called Mangdani, and he's running for the mayor for New York. Is that what it is? And I've been hearing people say if you have somebody from an Islamic background, that it would cause a fall to Western civilization, and New York City would go to put. So if you want me to talk about that, tell me. We talk this evening, right? Should Christians support Zionist Jews taking over the promised land? So that's another big topic right now. Women in leadership, especially in church leadership. Should women be in church leadership? So that's another big issue. Social justice. Is social justice a right thing? And to add to that, that would be like DEI and stuff like that. Are people really taking somebody's job when DEI put into place? So I don't know if you want to talk about that. So what you want to talk about? So gay marriage. Should gay marriage be presided by pastor, and should a society approve gay marriage? Gender roles. Should men swim against women? And should there be gender role, male, female? LGBTQI plus and furry people, and should they be included in society or in the church, and should they be accepted in the society and the church? Does that one interest you? These are things that people talk about in society. These are controversies. Imagine, in Christ's time, they were bringing the controversies to him that they were dealing with at that time. These are the controversies that people deal with in our society today. Is it liberal policies causing white people to reduce in numbers, ratio, or percentage? Do you want me to talk about that? Because I've been hearing people saying it's the liberal policies of the United States that's causing white people to disappear. All right, notice here the existence of perfectly good and all-powerful God with the existence or the presence of suffering in the world. If God is so all-powerful and all good, people have had, this is one of the age-old discussion in society. Why should there be suffering? In other words, why God don't stop people genocides? Why don't he step in? If God exists, so to speak. The historical record of religious violence and injustice compared to the benefits of religion in society. Should religion be in society, since religion is often the source of genocide and mass killing, mass murders? Evolution and creation, you like that? You want to talk about that this evening? Let's talk about controversy. How about lamb-like beasts? You want to talk about that, this concept of a lamb-like beast? Is that, just tell me what to talk about. I'm going to start with abortion, and wherever you tell me to go, I'll go there, whatever you type. Should Christians go to war, right? And the other thing would be to that discussion. or I was going to use my finger and wipe it off. That. So the other thing should be, should Christian practice self-defense, or should Christian only turn the other cheek? It's a discussion that goes on in society. Do you want me to talk about that? Is health care a right or a privilege? Is health care a right or a privilege? Next one is it a crime to cross the border to fill a job opening? All right. Next, second to last now. Were black ghettos created and functioned properly as they were designed to? Our black ghetto, I don't know how to say that one. The ghettos that are black ghettos in South Africa or in America, are they designed and created, and do they function the way they're supposed to function? Do they get the proper results that the people design them to get? And lastly, in the name it or claim it belief system in the evangelical church, is there a limit to what you can name and claim? You know, as I say, I'm asking for a friend. So we'll talk about this. So I'm going to talk about just abortion as an example, because recently I was watching one of the juggernaut in Adventism talk about the concept of abortion. And so I wanted to put some words out on abortion. So I'm going to read some stats on abortion, and then I'm going to tell you my personal take, on abortion. What do I believe in about abortion? So I'll just tell you straight. So I'll tell you before I even start reading, I don't believe in abortion, and I've never encouraged anybody, or me and my wife have never done abortion. So I'm not for abortion. I believe in life, and I believe in the sanctity of life. So I say that before I say some of the things I'm going to say. So notice here, according to Guttmacher Institute, I'm pulling this from AI, from Google, an estimated 1,038,000 abortions were provided by clinicians in the United States. That means they're not somebody going to a tree, that somebody just did abortion in 2024. So last year they claimed 1 million people were aborted. 1 million babies were aborted at some other place in life. This is a slight increase from 2023, when there were approximately 1,029,000 abortions. So that's their estimate. Now I think the CDC estimates 600,000, right? But their estimate that it's higher because some states it's illegal to do abortion and stuff like that. So that's why these numbers could have disparity. I'm not going to argue the numbers. I'm just telling you what the numbers are. Notice I read it for you. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention reports the recent official data, which is from 2022. In that year, there were 600,000 reported abortions in the United States. Now remember, the first hot button issue I'm going to talk about, which is one of the most difficult ones to talk about, according to some people, is abortion. To abort or not to abort. So 609,000, that was in the midst of COVID. So I don't know if COVID affected that. And as I say, some states have a problem reporting. It's important to note that these figures may not include all abortions, as some states do not report abortion data to the CDC. Additionally, the number of abortion may fluctuate depending on factors such as access to health care, legal restriction, and economic condition. According to the Guttmacher Institute, the demographics with the highest abortion rate in the United States. Now, this is important because remember what we're talking about in America, one of the hot button issues of not only abortion, but one of the hot button issue with abortion is that abortion is if there wasn't so much abortion, they would say the white race would probably be a bigger percentage of the American society. So I'm just telling you how they talk about it in the street. As I said, don't judge me. So notice here, black women, they account for 38% of all abortion. So I'm going to show you. So even when people are saying they're pro-abortion, are they against abortion? One thing you have to note is that the people who do disproportionate amount of abortion is actually black women. It's actually not actually white women. White women probably for the size of their population, but most abortion from a percentage point of view is done by black females. So when people say they're pro-life, most people have said in the past that they're only pro-life if the child is unborn. But the moment the child is born in America, they don't want to have no support for that child. You're going to see why that's important. Because even when we talk about abortion, abortion is not that, it's not no pro-abortion or not abortion. The issue is who is doing most abortion and what happened to the child if the parent or the single mother or even the parents can't take care of the child. This is the discussion they're not having. So if you go look at any discussion, most discussion I've watched where people, as I say, I was watching a Juggernaut from the Adventist Church talking about it, and he's against abortion, but you notice that the people who are mostly against abortion, they're not really for health care for the mother, and they're not for adoption. So I'm going to give you some stats, because what I want to show you is all these hot button issues, they're not as simple as how people make them out to be. And it's easy for somebody, like myself, I do not believe in abortion. But again, I'm looking at the issue, and as I say, it's more complex and mercy is needed. Black women account for 30% of all abortion, despite making up only 13% of the female population. So if you know your math, you can see really quickly that's 3x. Is there a problem there? Do you see a problem? If black women make up 13% of the population, but 13 times 3 would be 39, right? So they're almost doing 3 times their size in abortion. Then that would make me perk up, because I was trained that if you see an anomaly, you must observe the anomaly. So that would tell me that something is wrong. Black women is doing 3 times more. So then we have to drill down more and say, well, what's going on? Because, it's easy for conservative, especially white male, to say that we're anti-abortion. But who doing most of the abortion disproportionately? Black women. So what's going on here? So now let's look at the demographics. Other demographics with higher abortion rates include Hispanic, which would make sense, and then Hispanic women, and then lastly would be women this age. That's young, right? So Hispanic make up 20%. Women aged 20 to 24 make up 27% of all abortion. Now, notice now, women with low income make up 72% of all abortion. So 1 million people get abortion, or 600 and something thousand, 2022, depends on your number, what you're looking at. 72% of that women who get an abortion are young. A big percentage, almost 1/4 of them are young. And then now, a bigger percentage of that, 72% of them are women with low income. Almost, and I'm going to give the last number and I'll take your comment. And then the other number is that there's unmarried women. So if you take up these numbers, what you start to see is a picture that most people, when they're having a discussion about pro-abortion or non-abortion, they're not talking about something that's going on. Who's doing the abortion? And what you find is that 72%, 1 in 3, almost close to 1 in 3 women who do abortion, they are poor people. Then 86% are unmarried, single women. And then 27% are women of age 20 to 24, they're younger. Hopefully they would have a career by then, most of the time not. And then 38% of all abortion is done by black women. What's the picture there? But who is leading the discussion? Who is saying that these women need to have kids? One more demographics, but I'm going to go to that piece of information, that whatever you want to share there.
I wanted to share a comment from Sister Martha from Sister Heather on our YouTube platform. She quotes Jeremiah 1:5, which reads, "Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest out of the womb, I sanctified thee." Here, God speaks of knowing Jeremiah before his birth, suggesting divine purpose and personhood begin early.
Okay, good. I believe that. All right. So it's important to note that these statistics can vary depending on the source and the year of data. All right, because as I said, 2022, we're in the midst of COVID, probably lockdown, so probably they were not a thing. So next thing I want to share with you, and then I'm gonna get back to that Jeremiah. Just remind me to get back to that Jeremiah comment. Foster care. Now, why do I pull foster care when we talk about abortion? Why do I pull foster care? One of the things that has been shown, I don't know the statistics of what percentage, I didn't get to pull the statistics of what's percentage of women that are prostitutes. But one of the things that they've known, that a lot of pimps have known, is that says you try to get kids out of the foster system to be prostitutes. Right? Very important. So when we talk about the foster care, we're talking about a lot of those kids are going to end up being sexually, physically abused. If you note, and you can look at the documentation, in Europe and America, a lot of the men, especially white men, will go to Indonesia as one of the primary countries, talk about Bande Aceh and places like that, and Philippines to find either child bride, or people to do pedophile with. Because poverty is part of the issue, and part of the issue also there is no parents. I think it was a month ago, there was a grandmother that was probably in her 30s, that her granddaughter got pregnant at 11 and they arrested her for child abuse. So a lot of what we're talking about here, when we even talk about people are doing abortion, we're talking about people who are in the lower end, white and black, of society, and people who have not the means to take care of these children. And the people who are most adamant that says there should not be abortion. As I'm saying, I'm talking about somebody who don't believe in abortion. So you listen to me talking, I'm believing the sanctity of life, like Jeremiah says. We are dealing with an issue that is the issue of people who are suffering, and we live in a society that is about bailing out the rich, bailing out the powerful, and the same rich and powerful is telling us, okay, these people need to be forced to have the children to save the white race, while most white people don't do abortion, because most of them have means of contraception and even probably the morning after pill. I don't know if the morning after pill is reported. Notice here, foster care demographic. Why am I talking about foster care demographic? Because they find out that prostitutes are taken from the foster system because they have no parents. And is that me intimating? I'm not intimating in any way that there is an issue here with the foster care and that I believe that says somebody needs to be aborted. I'm just saying that I find it very unnuanced. I find it very purposeful that the persons who are most aggressive for anti-abortion are the person who are most aggressive, that you find is the most sexual abusers. And you find, like in the priesthood, the Catholic Church is big for anti-abortion, but they're the one that have been accused and been locked up and pay out money to abusing kids. All these kids come from lower income demographics and poverty people who are fatherless or widows. So we're watching them and we see their corrupt behavior. So notice here the demographics of children of foster care is diverse, with the majority being white followed by black and Hispanic. Notice some demographics number. Black and American Indian native children are overrepresented. Are what? Overrepresented in the foster care. Because remember, whites make up a larger percent of the population, so most kids in the foster care by number will be white, but by percentage, most of those kids will be black, percentage-wise, in other words, when you come on to the representation of the population. Since black people make up 12% of the population, India, I think 13%. Notice here, black and Native Americans, which are the two most oppressed people in America, and Alaskan Native children, are overrepresented in the foster care relative to their proportion in the general child population. The age distribution is fairly even, with half of the children being under 12 and the other half between 12 to 20. The gender split is approximately equal, so male, female. So you get what I'm saying there. So notice there what the numbers are saying. So when people are going to look for people to abuse, where they're going to, they're looking for people who basically they either given up by their parents or the parents can't take care of them, because probably the parents take care of them. You know, they probably the pedophile probably have to go to prison and all that type of stuff. It could be an uncle, it could be a priest, a pastor. They seem to be getting arrested a lot. The same people who say they're anti-abortion. So you need to pay attention to who preaching this type of message and see how harsh they be. And they don't really know what they're doing to these women who have to take care of these kids, and these kids, how they have to be brought up. And many of them are going to end up in prostitution. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not saying that they need to be aborted, but I'm just telling you, the same male, especially conservative white male, who keep talking about we anti-abortion, they need to step up and take care of those kids. I'm going to say it again. They need to step up and take care of those kids, since they're the loudest voice. Tell me what you think, because we're having a discussion here. It's a discussion, literally. So white, around 43% of children in foster care are white. Black and African American, about 23% of children in foster care are black and African American. So you can understand what's going on here. So black represent 13% of the population. So they almost, when they come out to foster care, punching 2 times. So when they come on to abortion, they're 3 times. When they come on to foster care, they're 3 times. Or another is numbers I was looking at. For first sexual encounter, blacks do first sexual encounter quicker than whites, even though they said the gap has been narrowing. So the blacks will start engaging sex earlier. And again, those who are in the demographics that have the highest amount of like single parent homes or no parent home because they're just let go in the street and younger, so they can, you know, the rappers can abuse them, are blacks. So a lot of what we're talking about is a socioeconomic problem, not so much just an education or just a skin color problem. The poorer, the younger, the less parent and the less guardianship, the more foster care is the more you have people who get pregnant early. But yet when they have the discussion, they're having a discussion about some other thing. And they're not talking about really what's going on. And that really, we're not supposed to have a discussion about abortion only or primarily. Our main thing we should have, if the child is so precious, I'm going to get back to that text. Child is so precious, we're supposed to be having a discussion about foster care and what the conservative, especially white male and Christian church, is supposed to be doing for these kids, because it's a repeated cycle. But they're having the wrong discussion. And similar to what was going on with Christ, every discussion they were asking Christ, they were either wrong or they were hypocrites. And what it is I say, I'm just simply saying here, the discussion about abortion is not supposed to be discussion. The prime discussion is supposed to be about, if you love kids so much, what you should do is say, are we supposed to be adopting these kids? And we tell these women, don't abort, we'll take the kids. That's more the discussion. Because if you love life so much and you think, I'm formed in the womb and I'm supposed to be protected, what are we doing, especially when we come on to the society that abuse Native Americans and black people so much, and the same people abusing them, the same people say, have the kids, have the kids. Notice here, multiracial, no, Hispanic, 22%. So Hispanic make up, I think, 13, 14% of the population, and they almost punching 2 times their weight when they come on to foster care, because these people are having the kids and they can't take care of the kids. The other problem I'll say also is kids born with disability. When kids born with disability, parents want to give up the kids. And I've known people who have done that. Just give it up to the system, right? And then the child is at the mercy of the system. And where's the church? I should think the leaders in the church should shut them out when they come on to this, because they have shame in their face. Multiracial, 8% of all children are multiracial. That means probably, I don't know, somebody go with somebody that they shouldn't go with, and they have a child and they decide to abandon the child. American Indian Alaskan, 2% of children in foster care, and Asian are the 1% of children. So why do I say this? I say this because when you look at all the discussion that Christ was going back and forth with the Pharisees and having discussions, and the Sadducees, there were discussion that they were either being hypocritical, especially the Pharisees, that's our religious conservative. The Sadducees, the liberal, they didn't care about nobody, they're just wrong. Or they didn't know. Some people just didn't know. And they were asking Christ a question. And I'm going to go through this now, but I will tell you my opinion on abortion. The issue on abortion, to me, primarily is a socioeconomic issue. It's the issue of the most oppressed people in the world. It's the people that do the most abortion in America, do the most abortion. And the people that has the most broken, be more oppressed by conservative, especially white male. They're the one that do the most abortion, and they're the one that give up their kids most to foster care. So the discussion shouldn't be about should we do abortion or not abortion. The question should be about what should we do with the children. Because if somebody say, the next statement, first they should say they believe in adopting kids. and taking care of kids and building orphanage, and then they should say I'm anti-abortion. Do you get what I'm pointing? That's my point. So if you ask me, what do I think about abortion? I don't believe in abortion. I've never encouraged anybody to do abortion. My wife never do no abortion. All right? But does that mean now that I just believe that the issue is that simple? No. I'm telling you here the issue is more complex. The issue is a more complex issue. If somebody tell me now, read the text again for me, and then I'll go to my text. Jeremiah, please. Just read it again for me, and then I'll go to my text.
Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee.
All right, so this is a specific text talking about Jeremiah, but even if it was a text that's talking about everybody. So the Lord knew us, and that child was going to be born, and the child was going to be born with Down syndrome, that child was going to be born with disability, that child was going to be born white. And the parent was thinking to abort it. And I'm, as a Christian, I believe in that text. I believe all life is precious. Then the question shouldn't be about anti-abortion. My opinion. The discussion should be, because Christ loved all life, where the orphanages, where the adoption. The people come up and say, I'm anti. Next question is, they should say how many kids they have adopted. And then now I'll say respect. I respect that person because you show that you love life. Because loving life, saying that a woman who is born by, the child that's going to be born in incest, the child is going to be born with disability, the child is going to be born in a situation where you're going to be foster cared and be preyed upon by these pimps and stuff like that. You should say firstly, the discussion shouldn't be about all this discussion about what the right has. About abortion, the discussion should be about what are you going to do? Are you going to step up? All right? Are you going to step up? Are you going to care? When those child has to come out with disability. I've taken care of one facility I work in the past was a facility that had people who were severely disabled, crippled from the neck, of multiple sclerosis. They were very difficult to take care of. And I wasn't taking care of them because of volunteer. I was working as a job. And that was one of the most depressing jobs I had because I had people that were younger than me to taking care of people that were in their teens. And to see somebody that has a young body but they're crippled from the neck down. That was very difficult, hard work. So I'm just talking about it from a person who, I'm not, trying to avoid the discussion. I just think the discussion, when people talk, I've never heard them talk about who's having these kids and what to do with the burden of the parents who are going to deal with kids that are going to be lifelong disabled, lifelong developmental problem. And then some of these people, the kids are fine, but again, they have not the wherewithal, the money to take care of these kids. Let's have those discussions, and if we have those discussions, I think we can, instead of cut away from this stupid idiot, to me just foolish talk about all this abortion thing, and really get down to the meat of the matter. Because I've seen parents, I read those articles all the time. When I see a parent say they have a child, and the child now is 20 years old or 24 years old, and the parents now is in their 50s, going 60s, and they're worried because they don't know what's going to happen to that child if they die. Who's going to take care of that child? Because that child is forever disabled. And when we start having those discussions, we're having more a mature discussion. But it's easy for someone to say, oh no, to take a life is to kill. I believe that because I don't believe in abortion. But I also believe that you take care of a kid. And for somebody that, as I say, I've done this stuff with pathfinders, I've done this stuff with young kids and stuff like that. It's very difficult for a parent to deal with child that are very sickly. So again, we need to have these type of discussion, but we're not having mature discussion. And to watch our leaders who are conservative keep talking about their anti-this and anti-that. And yet you say, okay, but what we're doing, how many orphanages does the Adventist Church have? And how many orphanages that you see there, and then you hear later on, there's reports of these kids were being raped. So I think we need to have more mature discussion. And the discussion is not a flippant discussion, it's a very serious discussion. And these discussions are not being had seriously. I don't take serious these people talking about they're just anti. Yeah, you're anti, but where's the foster care? Where's the adoption? People like that should talk. And if somebody tell me, Mr. Lloyd, I'm pro-life and I have 10 kids that I've adopted, praise the Lord. I respect that. And I honestly respect that. Proverbs 7:26, verse 1. Notice here, before I go into some of the other discussions I want to have with you here for the next probably half an hour. Notice it says there, as the snow in summer and as the rain in harvest, So honor is not seemingly for a fool. Sometimes what we're dealing with, people who are very foolish, and they have not worked in the pits or the trenches. You know, I respect a man that when their wife is sick, they honor the vow that they take and stay with the sick wife, or a woman that does that. Because now they tell me that's true Christianity. That's the cross you're lifting. That's when the rubber meets the road. I respect a person that when they have a child and they say, listen, I'm going to stick with my decision. A child come out sick and they say, I'm going to stick in there. That's when life gets serious. And I can respect that person more. But honor is not, that's for what the person needs. Honor. Honor is not seeming for a fool. All of these discussions, that the left-right discussion, they're fools talking. As a bird by wandering and as a swallow by flying, so the curse causeless shall not come. When you see curse in the society, you have to ask yourself the question, what happened is a curse and is a cause? When you see high abortion rate in black people, you have to ask yourself the question, look at where the ghettos are at. As I ask the question, are the ghettos that we see where most of black society live, do they operate the way they were created to operate? And do you expect the women from those places, the kids from those places, they're going to have kids fast? And are they going to be, if you're 16 and you're in the ghetto, you can probably hardly read, because they say most, like let's say in Baltimore school district, most kids, most of the school district, I think 65% of the school district does not read at grade level. I know that child is 16 and have a child. How's that child going to be able to take care of that child? Can the grandparents take care of that child when they're suffering because that's what the Democratic Party and that's what the Republican Party put them to live? Are you really what do you expect to do? Somebody have to step up. If they don't step up, just silence. Let's go pray and meditate. But what they hope running them out? Who's going to take care of that child at 16? A 16-year-old having a 16-year-old. Just think about it. You look at me, my age. I could be a grandfather. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm sometimes trying to figure out life. How a 16-year-old going to take care of a child? So somebody have to step up. Somebody will step up on that child, does an abortion. Well, it's a child you're dealing with. And that's why they have the Romeo and Juliet law. Right? Because the father, who the father? If the father is 16, is he going to take care of that child? What's going to happen? But we have an immature discussion because we can't talk as real human beings, because I guess we're doing the TV stuff. So you know me here, we talk. Tell me in the comment section, the people who love children, tell me, what are they saying? They saying anything? Go ahead.
Sister Heather also notes, if we speak against abortion, we must also speak just as strongly about providing real resources, justice and protection for children and families after birth. Yeah,
that's right. Because think about, we live in a country that is, the conservative will tell you, oh, I'm against abortion. But they're the first one to say, oh, I vote against health care. That's why I asked the question. And you have to answer those questions in your mind. Is health care, especially for young mothers, is health care a right or is it a privilege? And it should only be for the rich and the powerful. And you can see because I've seen people, have any of you ever seen a poor person that got pregnant in the teens and they're going to have a stroke? And it seemed like they're stressed out. And they seem so stressed out because the only option they're looking at is they're staring an abortion in the face. Have you ever seen, if you've never seen that, this is not some family member of mine or anything like that. This is, you know, you're in church and you deal with society. You run into some cases that are very vexing. And next you know this person, you don't see the person is not pregnant anymore. And you know what happened? Pregnancy disappeared. Because the pressure, because it's like, I'm a child, I'm going to take care of a child. So it's easy for people to sit there on their multi-million dollars talking about, oh, they're more righteous than poor people. It's easy. And that's why they can't talk what they talk. But but the same person go vote all day long to put in people power that's not going to tax the society to maintain those lives and to provide health care and all that type of stuff. And look, they say in New York City, how much it costs? Some crazy amount of money, I think $25,000 a year or something for daycare. Right? The poverty rate in America is $17,000. $7.25 by 40 by 52. That's the poverty rate in America. And a daycare in America is $25,000. You figure that one out. But we're not having proper discussion. And then somebody come in and say, oh, I want to do some social program to bring down the cost of daycare. And somebody say, oh, he's a socialist. These people are ridiculous. So that's why I try not to have these discussions because, I don't debate this type of stuff because I just look at the person as they're either stupid or they're just being wicked. Or they're just ignorant, like the third guy. One was in error, one was being a hypocrite, wicked, and then the other one, he didn't know, so he just wanted to know from Christ. He had a suspicion. As a bird by one and as a swallow by flying, so the curse causeless shall not come. This is a principle. When you see a curse, you have to look and say there's a cause. There's a cause. Notice here, a whip for the horse, a bridle for the ass, and a rods for the fool's back. So when you see a person getting whipped, you understand I said they're being a fool. Answer not a fool according to his folly, lest thou be like unto him. So when a person is talking foolishness and you start answering them, you start to sound foolish. That's why I understand I don't do debates with these type of things, because most people are arguing the wrong, they're asking the wrong questions. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own conceit. He that sendeth a messenger by the hand of a fool cutteth off his feet and drinketh damage. So let's go through some of these things real quickly now with that text in mind. So the first one, major issues in society. I took the first one because this is probably one of the most difficult ones to deal with. Because as I say, they're gonna, right now they're lining up to push back these babies and back up the woman's womb and make them have those kids so they can maintain the demographics of the society. That's their choice. But there's going to be a lot of disabled kids to deal with. Because one of the things that's going on with abortion is some of these kids are coming out disabled. And there's countries, I think it's Norway, that don't allow a child to be born with Down syndrome. Is that right? I'm not there, so it's not something I wrestle with. All right, how about this one here? Because I know some people probably, which I do this because I believe there is a nuance to this. Politics in pulpit. Should there be politics in pulpit? So I believe that there should not be politics in pulpit. And so if you listen to me here, unless you weren't listening to me last year, when say Joe Biden was in power, people thought I was probably against Joe Biden, so they would think probably I'm for the Democrats. So then normally what happened, each election cycle I lose people because somebody will listen to me and I'm talking about not politics, but if the government does something wrong, I believe civil rights and human rights wise, because I believe that Christ was also believing human rights, even though people, I can show you Bible and spiritual prophecy for this, but people don't believe in that. So people will hear me and think I'm talking about politics. I'm not talking about who to vote for. I'm just saying, if John Brown or Mary Sue go into the government and they do something wrong, I'm going to say it's wrong. Because if people are dying, I think it's murder. I don't care who kills the person. If the government order an attack on Venezuela, I'm just going to say up front, if it happens, I'm going to say it's a war of criminality. They're stealing oil. And I'm just going to call it. People are going to say I'm anti the president, or I'm just not into politics. So I do not believe that politics should be in the pulpit, but I believe morality should be in the pulpit. And that's it. Rich or poor, free or bond. But people get confused because if I say it's not right, it's not right. So when Biden was in power, I say you can't force, you shouldn't be pushing guns into the face of Putin or in the face of Moscow or Russia. And people thought I was I'm against the Democrats. And, but Trump say he armed the Ukrainians and they wanted to give ballistic missiles to the Ukrainians. And then Putin invades. So somebody said, but Lord, if Putin invades, is not wrong. So look at this. October 7, 2 years ago, Hamas attacked Israel. Over 3 years ago, Putin attacked Zelensky. So somebody said, okay, so the aggressors is Hamas and the aggressor is Putin. And when you think about this, Americans should be the biggest proponent of Hamas, because if you've been demoralized and have kids being shot in the head for 50-something years, you're right to do what you have to do. That's where I stand. But somebody says that it's not politics. I'm just telling you, that's my moral stance. Could I be wrong? Yes. But I preach that. I preach what I believe, because I don't have my editors, my church members, and myself, and the Bible and spiritual prophecy. So I preach what I preach. This is what I believe. I believe that says if just like with America, when Russia decided to put new bombs, I think it was nuclear bombs or ballistic missiles, that could carry a nuclear warhead in Cuba, America threatened. America said they would invade, or whatever they said, on a JFK. So now when the role was reversed, people said, no, Putin have no right to go in and stop the effect. I just say, like, so listen, what's good for the goose, good for the gander. So people listen, well, that's not politics. So what I believe is politics is when you're endorsing a candidate. So I believe that shouldn't be in the pulpit. Next point. Type of music in worship. Did anybody type what I need to talk about? No? Okay, so I talk about that. So I keep going until somebody tell me what to talk about. Type of music in worship. So this becomes because music is not just the concept of what's singing. The type of music in a church becomes an issue because what you're getting with the music is, I believe that says the type of music in church is affected by the creep, the worldly creep. The more people tend to listen to what they listen to in the society. And I don't believe all music make for good worship. And then what the secular music is, like this is what somebody say. If you notice, it doesn't matter who you're listening to. Most of the music today is about love. And you go to the hymnal, right, as an example. I'm not saying just hymn, you can have modern music, because I believe in modern music. But I tend to do a fine line because I'm trying to err on the side of caution when it comes onto music. So why do we choose the music we choose? And you listen to Revive Farm Radio, you see I'm into music. I'm massively into music, probably than most people. So I listen to all kind of music, but I don't play certain music, and I'm definitely not in worship. Why? Because when we deal with type of music in a church, a lot of the music has to do with what people listen to, secular society. But the music in secular society is most a carnal. In other words, not carnal in the sense because there's music or drums, but in the sense of the words and the way they sing and stuff like that and what they're singing. And so that tends to creep into church, and most music is about pride or sensuality. That's what most music is. So if you look at it, even at the modern, you go to the hymnal, the songs can be about experience. You know, like today we sang the song, Faith of Our Fathers. It's singing about the dark ages and how the faithful people die. But when you get into secular music or modern religious music, it's about pride and it's about sensuality. You could just take out the song, My Love. You take out in the song, take out the words Jesus and replace it with My Love, and some of these songs would be great R&B music. Because sooner or later you start to turn on the lights with Jesus and you start to put on some nice background music and you want to make love to Jesus. And that's all that the songs in worship have become. They become very sensual. And so for me, I believe that we have to be careful with that. And other than the songs in the worship service, they're either war songs, because that's the songs in the society, or they're songs about pride. Look at me, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, I'm the best, and that's to me most rap music. And even, country and Western music is about nothing. It's about my pickup truck, my bear, and stuff like that. And some of the songs are just about nothingness. So we have to be careful with that. Next, if no thoughts, any thoughts?
The next subject is prayer in schools.
All right, so let me just tick them off so I know which one I cover. And then prayer in school, so I skip that. So prayer in school. So I believe that says, I've been taught for years, and I believe this, that says the slippery slope is that, and this is probably similar to that voucher program to a certain degree. So the prayer in school is, which is a hot button issue in our society, is that what we're looking at here is a remember, we know that where America is going is towards the church taking over the society, because as this society become more immoral, the preachers and priests will say that the society to go back to God because we have a godless society. Because think about the emergency we have now, where every day almost white male is just shooting up stuff, burning down stuff. There's a 21-year-old young man that had burned down Palisades, Pacific Palisades. They're just doing but most of those young people, they grew up in a godless home. You never see them in church. You rarely see white young men in churches. So you can see what they're going to say, and I say what we need to do is probably force them to accept the Bible again. But religion can never be forced. So prayer in school is not going to work. It's not going to work because you can't force people in the religion. And remember, most of our tyranny came from people were religious, but they were ungodly. And if you look at this idea here, church as always was a problem because religion always was, if you look at Hitler and stuff like that, the church was behind him. You look at the Dark Ages, the church again. Tyranny often ends up come out of the church. So this is a slippery slope to get us back to religious tyranny. Should drugs and alcohol be legalized for personal use? Now, this is something that is but an issue in the society. I'm not going to spend too much time on that because this can be nuanced, right? Some people say we spend too much time trying to eradicate drugs and get rid of drugs. What we should do is just legalize it and leave it for personal use, and that's it. What do you think about that? Yeah, that's what I say. Prayer in school is a slippery slope. That's it. You have more thoughts? Because I have another thing. What more? No. What's your opinion on prayer in school? Anybody online have any opinion? Oh no, I'm finished talking about it. I'll move on. Unless you have something else for me to talk. What do I say? I have nothing more to say. It's not that much of an issue. I just believe that's the moment you start having secular people being forced to pray to a God that they don't believe in. That is tyranny in itself. Just think about it. I'm going to go to John Brown child and I'm going to say I'm going to force that child to pray and to pray to Jesus. Like somebody tell me one day they were teaching somebody to pray and the person didn't understand what they pray and they start praying to Lord, L-A-R-D, right? Because they don't understand what they're talking about. So sometimes you could have these kids pray to some sky god that they don't believe in. Prayer has to be something that you believe in. So how can you pray to somebody that you don't believe in? Yes, next.
So Sister Heather notes from our YouTube platform. On the other hand, even though some believe that bringing back prayer or the Bible into schools might restore moral foundations.
It might restore more so they can learn some theory, because at least they learn some theory of religion, right? But then the question...
Well, it's the morality they learn by being made to discuss or pray to God.
Yeah, but also they probably learn some moral traditions. So think about it, again, when we think about, a lot of this is coming from the religious conservatives. And do they have, like say, one thing about religious conservative is this concept of traditional family, right? Traditional family. Is that true? Does the religious conservative live by this principle of traditional family? See, so these are the questions. If you go into the corporate church right now, any corporate church, Baptist, Methodist, Adventist, do you hear about morality? Do they preach about morality? Because the only morality I hear they preach about is anti-abortion. But they preach about morality, doing the right thing. Would you say the evangelical church, the Southern Baptist Convention, are they moral people? Because it's one thing to say we need to bring prayer in the school, but can you hear about morality in the churches? So the people who are promoting wars everywhere in the world, the people who are promoting diamond mines in Liberia and all these wars going on there, are they going to be the one forcing kids to pray? Go ahead.
Next question is, should morality be taught at school or at home?
Should morality be taught at school, at home? I think it's the same thing when it comes on to government. Should the government can the government settle the issue of gender, like if a person believes they're a woman or male? Because that's one of the other discussion. Like, because I've known multiple people that said they voted for Trump to basically stop the foreign people and the gay people, like to stop them. Is he going to stop them? Because I read my Bible that gay business has been around for thousands of years. Right, so the issue of morality, should it be, I think it should be something in the pulpit, and I think it should be something in the home. I don't think you should force kids into that type of thing.
But isn't it true, though, that even at a simple level, even just the basic laws of our country or of this country are based on morality? Not stealing, not murdering, not... bearing, like, no perjury, like it's against the law for you to perjure or make up lies and stories
Yes.
about other people and slander. So why would that be a problem to teach just simple basic morality in school if that's already codified in our laws?
It wouldn't be a problem. I think that's usually...
But didn't you just say that it should be taught at the pulpit and home?
Yeah.
So why only there? Why not the school?
Because I think there's a difference between teaching it as a Baptist theory or teach it as the law of the land. It's just the law of the land, as you say. It's that's why I said, to me it's a like if you go to be a lawyer, you're just teaching it, you're just learning the law and the laws of the land, how the laws of the land work. You're not learning the laws of the land as an Adventist or a Baptist, right? That's your teaching.
Well, what's the difference between thou shalt not steal from Adventist teaching and Baptist teaching? Or Catholic teaching?
Because I don't think
Buddhist teaching or Confucius teaching. What's the difference between thou shalt not steal from?
Because there's a separation of church and state. And so the state must do what the state must do, and the church must do what the church must do.
So the church should not teach people not to steal.
The church, I should not go to a school and teach them not to steal.
So schools shouldn't teach people about not stealing.
I don't believe me. I should go there and teach them not to steal. I should do it on the pulpit.
Well, in school, no one's asking the pastors to go into the school to teach. I think the question is in regard to the educators, the people who are in place in school, the principal, the teachers, the guidance counselors. Why shouldn't they teach not to steal, for instance?
Oh no, they can teach it. They should teach it.
Sister Heather notes, what about it takes a village to raise a child?
Which village?
Isn't part of the village
American
school?
operate as a village.
Yeah, but that doesn't negate the fact that it's true that it takes a village to raise a child, correct?
Oh, she accepts that. In her village.
You don't think that's true that it takes a village to raise a child?
It depends on your village. American operate as a village.
I'm not asking you how
But I'm in
America
America.
operates. I'm asking you, do you believe that it's true it takes a village to raise a child?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't school be part of that village?
It's not.
Why?
Because it's a separation of church and state.
School is just separation of church and state.
Yeah.
Isn't the purpose of school to educate children?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't that be part of the village then?
That's not a village. It's all the village go to that school. And there's multiple villages that go to the school. Like in this, like to me, it's like if you look at, like it takes a village to raise a child. It like, to me, like if you're part of we're having a discussion in our village, but our discussion wouldn't go with this village and this village. They're different villages. So the school to me should be a neutral entity, neutral environment where you just learn math, English. I don't even think school should teach evolution, because evolution is not a proven theory of the existence of the world.
Sister Heather notes, when I grew up, we prayed in school and it did me good.
I mean, let me ask Ernest, let Ernest testify if that's true.
He didn't know her when she was growing up in school, so he can't testify
No,
to that.
Is he doing good right now? We'll get to that. So I'm going to move on. Since this is, you all want to keep me on here? No, I'm moving on. Voucher program. Listen, we only have a few more minutes. Voucher program.
What if the village teaching your child about homosexuality?
See, but that's where it goes again now. See, so there goes the issue when it comes on to abortion. Because what village do you belong to? Because now, say you have the village people teaching your children at school, and you don't believe that says the village should be teaching your child about homosexuality. Should the church provide for the kids in their village? You know what I'm saying? Like, because that becomes part of the thing about when you're talking about the generic school district. If your child is going to the generic school district and they say prayer, and there's kids there that is atheists, should they have to pray? Or should they, again, that's what it is. Should they have to pray? If their parents don't believe in God and don't believe that the kids should pray, should they have to pray? But as I say, if the law of the land is that said, thou shalt not steal, well, that's the law of the land. But it's the law of the land, a separation of church and state. And that's not, she didn't grow up in America, obviously. So she didn't grow up in America. I don't think she grew up in America. Because in Jamaica, they had prayer in school. But that was not the law of the land, separation of church and state. But what do you do if you don't believe, what do you happen if you are Rastafarians and they believe not in God but in Jah and all that type of stuff? It becomes a problem. It becomes a wedge. But thou shalt not I mean, thou shalt not kill, those are the rule of the law, and I think that can be taught in school without have to.
Well, prayer in school, I think, is a little bit different than teaching morality, because
Yeah.
when you're talking
I
about
believe
prayer in
that.
school, you're talking about communication with a deity.
Mhm.
And depending on one's religion, that deity is going to be different.
Mhm.
And depending on
Buddhism,
one's
Baptist.
religion, even the means of prayer or the way in which prayer is conducted is going to be different. But whether someone is atheist or agnostic or Christian or Buddhist, there's certain set of moral codes within a country that are universal. One of which being we shouldn't steal from one another. Another being we shouldn't lie on one another.
Yeah, we can agree with that. So that's
we shouldn't murder one another.
Yeah, so that would be my point. That says some of these discussion, there's a answer C. You know, there's A and there's B, and we spend our time discussing A and B instead of discussing C, because if we discuss C, we could have an agreement. And I think that's where the problem with like if you say politics in pulpit, most people, if I say you can't murder, I don't care if it's the president murder is wrong, they'll say, oh, you're against the president. They don't understand. No, I'm not dealing with politics in pulpit. Type of worship for music. I just believe that says one has to be careful with the type of worship for music. You have to err on the side of caution. Legalization of drugs, that's a discussion that I think is a study in itself. Like again, the voucher program. The problem is that they're not trying to fix the school. They're trying to have these specialized schools instead of trying to address the problems in the school.
But then doesn't the point, though, if we're talking about voucher system in schools, Sister Martha noted a few comments ago, what if the village is teaching your child about homosexuality? And if that's the case and parents don't want their children to learn that in school or learn that that's an acceptable lifestyle, then why not have a voucher system and allow them to go to private school or parochial school where they're not going to learn that?
They're going to take your tax dollars. Yeah, I agree in some degree. But the problem again with that is that most of the time we're talking about disparity in education, not so much the type of education or what's being taught. It's the disparity. Most of the time I hear that the voucher program is talked about that says the kids are in certain public schools cannot get education, proper education. So we need a voucher program so they can buy their way into a school that is more teaching better. And so, but I understand the point about the village is that similar to like abortion, if we are for certain principles, we have to start having discussions about we shouldn't have our kids in these public schools. You just have to look at your tax dollars as a loss. Because some of the things that are going on in these public schools, they're horrendous what is being taught. You know, the issue of male, female, gender roles and stuff like that. And the kids could come out confused because they could think what's normal is not normal. They live in Sodom. So I think there is an issue that is there. But I do think that says pray in school. How do you pray in school? If we just think, because again, the issue is prayer in school, not morality. If the issue is prayer in school, do we pray the Buddhist prayer, as you say, the Islamic prayer, the Baptist prayer? What prayer do we pray in school? And if that's the thing, but if we're talking about morality, well, the civilization is built upon moral codes. And those codes are enshrined in the Constitution, they're enshrined in the laws of the land. And that can be taught in school. And if you do that, I think you avoid this concept of worship of deity, and that worship of deity can be fixed. Because think about, as I say, some of the most immoral places in the society are places where you have the Bible Belt. And those people are very religious people, but some of these are some of the places that have the most inequity, most hate, most people disappearing because of certain crimes, mass murders. So morality, I think, can be just taught as the law of the land, and that should be upheld. That's not going to fix people, but I believe that's if we cannot make the secular society do what the church is not doing. Because as I said, we've been in Adventism for years. Rarely do you find a pastor preach morality. And if you find a pastor preach morality, people say he's preaching politics or social justice. because being fair is something to do with social justice, and it's negative. So how are you going to have the church not preaching morality, but the church want to force schools to teach morality to the kids? Most churches you go to, if you talk about morality, they're against you. And that's why it was for moral reason why we out of the church. We're independent. And so if you hear me over here, it's because I'm independent, I'm talking about morality, but people might think it's about politics. It's not about politics. I just think if a president do something wrong, or the senator or Congress people, I believe that says because of the Bible, Elijah, Jesus, John the Baptist is fair game. You know, if you're committing adultery, John the Baptist is going to speak out against you. So we should too. But somebody will say, oh no, that's politics. That's not politics. It's just if you do wrong, you do wrong. You know, that's just a fine. If you notice again, if you took a first class seat on Turkish Airway, the pastor should say that's wrong first. But somebody say, oh, that means you're against, you know, Mayor Adams because he's a Democrat. No, it's nothing to do with that. It's just you know, if you're a Supreme Court justice like Clarence Thomas, and you're taking yacht trips on a billionaire that sponsor you, or you do laws that is, you know, in his favor, it's for the pastors to say that's wrong. But people say, oh, that's against because he's conservative, that's against conservative. No, it's just immoral. You're taking bribes. You're just trying to play the fool. But you're taking bribes. But people have a problem with that. We'll just take two more or so, and then we close. Fall of Western civilization to have a leader from an Islamic background. If we have a separation of church and state in America, and the leader is just there to run civil society, could you have a leader from an Islamic background or a Buddhist background become the leader? So somebody say, oh, so you're pro this guy, you're pro Magnani. I'm not pro him, I'm just saying, I believe that you could have a person from Buddhist background, Islamic background, Southern Baptist background, Adventist background, who could be a good leader in a city or in the country, because we're not supposed to have a religious test. But yet Western civilization people are telling us that you cannot have a leader from a different religious background that is not Christian. But I thought that's what America was founded on. No religious tests. That's basically what my point here is. Just no religious tests. It's not a difficult discussion. For me, the issue is, can a person run civil government? Will they do education, roads, deal with things for inflation, you know, deal with the security of the people? If the person is good at that, then why not make the person lead? That's my opinion. But somebody say, are you pro? I'm not pro, I'm just saying. It's just, I don't care who it is. Notice here, should Christians support Zionist Jews taking over the promised land? No. That's a clear no for that. That's what we say, no. Right? No. Because Jesus Christ says the Jews rejected him, and so Christ rejected them, and the Jews have there's nothing in the Bible that says the Jews have any place in Zion. Whatever they're doing is against God. Women in leadership, I don't believe women should be elders or pastors. So there's not much there to say. Social justice, I believe social justice is part of God's justice. God loved the poor, the widow, the fatherless. God believed a just pound, a just kilogram, a just whatever. You have a right scale, a balance, and you do right. That's social justice. What is good for the goose is good for the gander. I don't think these are improper discussion. DEI, I believe that DEI, I don't know exactly how it's implemented, but I believe that says there is some wrongs that has been done. And giving a person an opportunity to look at their resume doesn't mean that you're making some black judge or some black person get an opportunity that is not theirs. I believe that sometimes it's just a matter of saying, listen, we even just look at your resume, not necessarily you could get a job. Some people believe that this is unfair, but I believe we live in a society. Notice again, we were paying this guy millions of dollars to talk bad about black people because they had to get an opportunity. I just believe that we live in a society that has been historically unfair. I don't know what else to say. I don't know. I don't even think there's a discussion. This is just the history of America. And REP, so gay marriage, that's something that can have a discussion on that. Gender roles, I believe that's how you should have gender roles. I'll take one before I leave, because since nobody typed anything, we have just about it. I believe in all of them.
What gender roles do you believe in?
All of them. No. I believe in the gender roles. I believe that some people are single, and they're going to always be single. Some people are male, and then some people are female. That's it. Is there another role? Inclusion. like about the foreign
Is
people.
that what gender roles is commonly referred to?
I don't know what gender roles are referred to. What did they talk about? This is a discussion they have. I know I read the description. What is this? Jog my memory, sister.
How do you understand gender roles?
So just jog my memory.
Well, you have it
Come,
written up there, so
we
I'm trying
about,
to understand.
sure, we just about out of
So
time.
what did you mean by gender roles?
Me?
Yes, what you have written on the board.
Oh, the historical male and female role.
Which are?
No, so what they have is that say women should be women and men should be men. That's what they believe. And they should play their gender
That's
roles.
what you were referring to as gender
Me,
roles?
I'm just writing what the disagreements in the society and how should we include them and accept them. The existence. So can we move on before we close? The existence. We talk about that in private. It is it a liberal policy that causing white people to reduce in numbers, ratio, and percentage? So some people believe that's because of Civil Rights Act from 1960s onward, or because of the free abolition of slavery, or whatever it is, that these liberal policies are causing white people to disappear. And so some people have this. I do not believe that that's what's causing them, because they're not counting for all the different things that afflict the society. You know, the drug epidemic, AIDS, abortion, cancer, all these things. If you start adding up those numbers, I think 2 million people or 1 million people in America every year come down with cancer, and probably half of that die every year. You know, there's just things that are happening in society that you can actually count the numbers. And one day I'm going to count the numbers up, and I'm going to show you, because I've been looking at these numbers, and it's powerful to look at. That is not liberal policy. Liberal policy don't cause people per se to have cancer. Liberal policy is not causing 100 and something thousand people every year to die of just opioid, 3,000 cocaine, you know, suicide. I can't remember if suicide is 50,000 a year. You know, all these numbers you saw adding up. It's not the reason why. It's not liberal policy. It's people who want to admit the fact that there's stuff going on in society that needs to be faced. These, by God's grace, we're going to deal with in the next few months. The existence of a perfect God and a perfect, all-powerful God in the presence of suffering. So God exists, but why does God allow suffering? That's the question. I think most people don't understand what sin is and how God, with this idea of freedom, allow things to happen in this world. And some of it is God not forcing people. As I say, you want to be able to have your personal use of cocaine. Well, how much thousand people will be damaged and how much thousand people will be killed? The historical record of religious violence and injustice compared with the benefit of religion in society. Go ahead.
We have
please.
a comment. Sister Heather notes, personally, I believe healthcare is a right because access to medical care is essential for life and equality.
So she believes it's a right. So everybody should have access to medical care. Okay, so we live in a society, again, talking about these, you know, because some of the things say a certain way, because I would say, well, when we think about access to medical care, normally in our society, the right and the southern people normally is against access to medical care because they say somebody have to pay for that. You know, is food a right, or is food a privilege? Because you need food. But then if I'm going to have to pay, if you're broke and I have to pay for your food, I'm going to say you probably have to go on a diet and you have to eat less. So if I'm just looking at it from the other side now, if medical is not a privilege, it's a right. So what if I say, yeah, I'll pay for your medicine, but you have to start exercising. You have to start eating healthy. No more McDonald's. And so, you know, if you want the health care that I'm paying for, or the social system that society's paid for, I'm going to require now that you can't go to fast food. And then the fast food companies going to lobby against me and say, no, we in America it's free. People should be able to eat what they want to eat and still get the health care. You see what the problem is? So that can be a problem.
Sister Heather notes, food is a privilege, but it can also be a right.
Yeah, it's a privilege. So there's health care. But it's a difficult discussion because we're in the sickest and fattest country in America. So again, we're in a country where, okay, people want health care and they want the society to pay for it, but they say 85% of the frequent flyers are basically, what they say, white women who are obese or something else, I can't remember. And they have like diabetes and stuff like that. They use up the healthcare system more than anybody else. So they take up the load of the burden of the healthcare system. So say the whole society need to pay for them. Somebody will say, well, I'll pay, but they have to go on a diet and they have to start exercising. You see how that can go? So, like Brother Ernest always says, help come with instructions. So it's a right and a privilege, but how do you deal with that? So as I said, these are not like easy discussion where it's just left-right discussion. There's other things that needs to be discussed, please. Almost there.
But doesn't that also go back to, in some ways, selfishness, where if someone, in order for someone to have food or health care, now they have to bear certain burdens that you may not be bearing yourself, just because your money is going towards their care or their food.
Right, like say if you run a food pantry, right? If you're in a food pantry and you know somebody's physically able to work but they don't want to work, should you give them food? Yeah. Okay, what do you repeat it again for me?
So if we go by what you were saying, that if someone is going to have food or health care, now they can't have McDonald's anymore and they have to exercise. So isn't this heading into selfishness to some extent, where you're now going to make them abide by certain burdens that you might not be abiding by, just simply for the mere fact that your money is being contributed to help them?
You mean I'm not abiding by not eating at McDonald's and exercising? Yeah, but again, that's what it is you have the goal, make the goal the rule, right? So I think it's similar to the food issue. If you have a food pantry, you know somebody can physically go to work and they don't go to work, should you give them food? I'm just asking you. If you're running a food pantry, you see somebody come in, taking up all the flour and taking up all the food, and you know they physically can go to work and they don't want to go to work, should you give them food?
No, obviously not.
So you won't give them food? Come one, come all?
Not if they can. If they have the capacity to work and they're refusing to work, then no.
So if
they have the capacity to work, but there's no jobs around them, then yes, you should be giving them
there's
the
jobs
food.
and there's people say help wanted.
Or if there's jobs, but it's not going to cover the expense to feed them and their family, then yes, you need to give them the food.
Oh yeah, but I'm just saying there's jobs, there's help wanted sign.
Yeah, but not most of these jobs where help wanted is not going to take care of a family.
All right, but I'm just saying they're not working. I asked a very specific question. They're not working.
And I gave a specific answer by saying if they refuse to work,
you're not going to give them no food.
If they refuse to work and there are jobs that are available where they can support themselves, then no, you shouldn't be giving them.
So that means, so you're saying that says so help come with instructions. You know, not everybody.
No, I'm saying that a benefit.
It's not a privilege.
No, I'm saying that there are certain benefits that should be for a specific group of people. So, for instance. Food should be, or as Sister Heather's saying, food is a privilege, but it can also be a right.
Yeah.
So I think people who don't have access to food
should get the food.
They should be getting the food.
Right. And so healthcare, again, so you're saying that say in healthcare, if a person, say the person is going to eat a certain way, whatever, they should or should not get the healthcare.
No, I think people should have access to healthcare because some of the diseases that people end up becoming very expensive, it's because
they don't
people
have access.
Didn't get access to healthcare
or
in the
good
first
food.
place.
Yeah, or good
or
food.
Or healthy food.
Or healthy food. And so, should Christians go to war? War of defense. I'm eliminating we shouldn't go to war for conquest, but should Christians go to war for defense? Right? I do believe in war of defense. Am I spelling that right? So I do believe that, you know, the story of the Bible is a story of war of defense. I think that's it. People have a right to defend themselves. Is it a crime to cross the border to fill a job opening? Is it a crime to cross the border to fill a job opening? Say the person advertised for the job can't find somebody to do the job, or the citizen in the society not doing the job, like picking watermelon. Is it a crime that the person brings somebody to do the job when they can't find somebody to do the job? Because we know in America, most people are not doing certain jobs.
Sister Martha notes the conservatives believe that liberal policies is what is affecting people's lives, such as abortion, drugs, etc.
Yes. she had more thought with that. I know where she's going. Is healthcare right a privilege? We answer that. And should you, because should somebody come across the board to fill a job that I don't think I've never seen, except tomorrow remind me one situation. It's one time we ever go to a hotel and have to leave the hotel, and the hotel I think was staffed by Black Americans, and we had to leave the hotel. We couldn't even stay at the hotel one night because the hotel was so filthy. But I've never been, except for that hotel, I've never been to a hotel that was cleaned by anybody else but a Hispanic. So I think that says, if I have to go to a hotel, I need somebody to clean the hotel. And since blacks and whites, I've never seen clean the hotel except one, and that one hotel. Imagine, for all my life, only one time I've have to leave a hotel because it was so dirty, and it was run by some black people, and it was actually a major brand, Marriott, I think, or something like that. I've never seen a Marriott that dirty. So it could be a coincidence, but I've been going to hotels for decades now, and I've never seen that happen before. So somebody could say, "Oh no, we shouldn't have people come and fill certain jobs." But I've never been to all the hotels except that one hotel. The actual one hotel that was Black Americans, I guess they forced them to have to hire native people. It was the dirtiest, filthiest hotel I've ever been. I couldn't even sleep one night.
Okay, so going back to the food question, Brother Ernesto would like to know, should people in prison work for food?
Oh, so people, that's a difficult one. So should people, like how they go, like they're going to do like, see, well, if you incentivize people to work for, it's a slippery slope. If you incentivize people to work in prison, then now then you could have other implications of who's getting pushed in prison. Because notice, I think 80% of, don't quote me on that, it's a high percentage of the prison population is black again. And most of those people come from poor neighborhoods that were created by the white society. And they were designed to keep black down, not just the white society conservative, but white society Republican. And you can notice some of the worst towns in America, cities in America are conservative democratic cities. And the black people suffer in all these cities, whether it be south side of America or the north side of America. So that's where you end up having all these black people in prison. I know you're going to have these black people working on chain gangs. Literally, they're going to be chained. They're going to be chained up or whatever. And it might not be chained up, but in a room, secure room, working. Should they work for? I don't know. It's a difficult one. Very difficult one. Especially we know the current and the history of America. So, notice again, were black ghettos created and functioned properly as they were designed? So the black ghettos were designed to keep the lower class people or the minorities in a certain way. If you look at a black ghetto in Memphis, St. Louis, somewhere in Chicago, Compton. If you look at black ghettos in New York City, Chicago, Camden, Newark, they all function the same. Low education, no ownership. They live in rented property from people like the Trumps. They all function a certain way, and they all give you the same result. It doesn't matter if you're down south, the Democratic-run city or Republican-run city, they all have the same result because they're designed to get you that. Notice black people have lowest rates of ownership, but they live in most of these buildings that they're not owned by the government, they're owned by private individuals, and they're forever poor because they never can own anything. So they're designed that way. There are not a lot of corporations in those areas, so they really can't have work. And when they have work, a lot of times they have to deal with the union, which normally gives us like Ford and those companies that are basically not excellent companies. So what would I say? I'd say the black ghettos work. So a lot of these black ghettos now, to put it all together, gives you a lot of the abortions, a lot of the people in prison, a lot of the rappers, basketball players, nothing that is very productive because they're designed like that. This is the intentional design. If you want to study how they design the black ghettos in New York City, and that will give you all what you want to know about the black ghettos in Chicago, stuff like that. No matter if the Democrat or Republican run, the results are going to be black people are going to have the worst outcome. And the people who have even worse outcome than the black people are the Native Americans, because that's the design of Western America. So when we talk about abortion, it's more complicated than that because we're looking at that. We talk about prison. it's going to be black guys in prison. They're the target, number one target. And so I believe that some of these discussions are not being had properly, because when you have them properly, what you realize is that a lot of the numbers you see in the society is by design. They're not by accident. And don't let anybody tell you. And we're going to go over some of these numbers. And I'm not going to be able to spend much time on these numbers. I think by God, we're really to see next year. We'll deal with some of these things next year, because I'm going to deal with some of these laws and rules. There's a principle, cause and effect. If you see a curse, remember, according to the Bible, when you see a curse in society, the curse does not come causeless. We understand that it says white America died disproportionately from cancer, but those cancers can be linked back to skin cancer. They can be linked back to premarin, which is horse urine, that women were taking like by the boatload, and they were dying of all kinds of cancers. But people say, oh, they're just dying of cancers. No, just remember, your system is killing you. And we wrestle against not flesh and blood, against principalities and powers and wickedness in this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. And so that's what you're really wrestling against. So when we look at the society, don't think that say, oh, you just see some people dying of cancer, they just dying of cancer. That's not their bad luck. It's lays at the feet. The opiate crisis was the Sheckler family. That was a white family. None of them went to prison. But you're going to see a lot of black men went to prison for marijuana. But the Sheckler family killed their millions. And were they in prison? When the heroin crisis came, I called the heroin crisis. I predicted it. I said, listen, the heroin crisis is going to happen. The moment America landed in Afghanistan, I searched, what is Afghanistan known for? Heroin. And they had eradicated under the Taliban. It flourished under the American military. And they're known for growing poppy. And you look at that, I was preaching this way before. The moment America landed there, I said heroin going to be a big problem in America. And you look at it, you saw the heroin just rise like crazy. Because the moment the American military reached, the heroin flourished. And then we have a heroin epidemic. And it went from heroin to opiate. These are not accident. These are planned destruction of the society. But yet they're going to tell me I'm the enemy. But they're going to say, wait a minute, I'm not Sheckler, so I'm not the enemy. How am I the enemy? I'm not Jewish. How am I the enemy? May God bless you. May you have a blessed new week. And we're going to talk more by God's grace. Thanks for always being with us here at Covenant Advent Church. Thanks.
Please take your hymnals in hand and turn to hymn 51. Hymn 51.
So
when forever from our sight pass the stars, the day, the night. Lord of angels on arise, let eternal morning rise, and shadows end. Holy, 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 Lord God of hosts, heaven and earth are full of thee. Heaven and earth are praising thee, O Lord Most High. Amen. Let us kneel for our closing prayer. Dear kind, gracious Father, thank you, Lord, for the time we've spent in worship this day, for the things we've read, the things we've discussed, the things we've heard, the things we've sung. I pray, Lord, that these things might be with us as we are upon a new week, that they will strengthen us for the battles that lie ahead, and that, Lord, each day you will help us to walk more humbly and faithfully before thee than we did the prior day. I pray that you will continue to be with us through not only the remainder of this day, but also through this upcoming week. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you for joining us for Bible study or for worship through this day. Thank you for spending your Sabbath with us. Please join us again next week where we will study for Sabbath school. What topic? Okay, I was told something about grace. So join us for Sabbath school. I pray that you will have a productive and faithful week. And I pray the Lord will continue to bless you and keep you. Thanks again, and God bless.